Hello, hello. Welcome to a new and another episode of Becoming Chiron, the key to unlocking healing and personal alchemy, with me, your hostess, Ursula Duffy. Today is Friday, February 3rd, and I pressed record right at 11 a.m. here on the East Coast in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So today I want to talk first about the full moon that we have incoming on Sunday. So we'll do pretty much focused Astro Weather Check on that. And then we'll get into today's topic, which is Chiron in the fourth house of the chart. So we've been doing this Chiron through the houses, and then I'll shift to Chiron through the signs. And then I think it's kind of percolating, but maybe next season, season 3, I'll start doing interviews with people. So I'm pretty excited about that idea and starting to just get new and different perspectives and really get into people's personal experiences besides my own with their Chiron natal placement. So we have a full moon incoming on Sunday at 1:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this will be our full moon in Leo. And this full moon I'm seeing a lot of squares, but also some supportive energy and some trines. And the biggest energy that is incoming with this full moon that has been building now for several days is, I think the first thing I want to touch on is Uranus is squaring the full moon. So that means from 15 degrees of Taurus, Uranus is squaring the sun at 16 degrees of Aquarius and the moon at 16 degrees of Leo. And will be on Sunday. So we have Uranus square the sun only twice a year. The last time this happened would have been in the summer when the sun was in Leo. So it's probably a good idea at this point to reflect back 6 months ago. The new moon in Leo was on July 28th. And really think about what's materialized in your life at this time or through that time, through the last 6 months. Whenever we have Uranus involved with anything, the energy can be very surprising. It can feel very unstable. Uranus is known as the Great Awakener. So we have this square aspect or a challenge to who we are at our core, our inner light, Aquarius, and pretty much the sun in Aquarius, we can say, and the moon, which is our inner world and our feelings of safety and security in the sign of Leo, which is so connected to our inner child and our creativity. It rolls over the heart. So this challenge that we're going to experience with this full moon is really interesting because when we're talking about the dynamic between Aquarius and Leo, Aquarius is the innovator, the rebel, loves freedom, but it's also the humanitarian. And it's more about the collective and what's for the greater good. And Leo is our personal contribution to that. So if you're feeling any tension around those themes in your life, you're definitely going to feel it building more and more. And then a couple of days after the full moon, as that square starts to wane, as we say, as the sun moves away from Uranus, and we'll have that square aspect over. This is also what's known as a T-square. So we have 3 planets involved, and then there's an empty house or a sign on the other side of Uranus, which is Scorpio. So whenever there's a T-square aspect, the best thing to do to kind of release the pressure or like turn the valve to get some of the energy out is to do things related to the other side. So Scorpio things. And this came up when I was talking with a few people this week, and one of the ideas that came up with releasing the energy was primal scream. So anything that really gets to the deepest depth of your emotions or anything that you want to release, full moons are good times for release. So I highly recommend, if this is feeling really intense, doing something to get deep emotions out. With the South Node that has been going through Scorpio now for all of this year and part of last year, 2022. So we're still in South Node and Scorpio. It shifted in December of 21. It's one of my favorite astrologers calls it the great anus of the zodiac. So this is our release point, and with Scorpio energy, it is releasing our deepest, most intense emotions, things that have been stored in our body, things that might kind of be like frozen inside of us. Good time, especially right now, especially under the energy of this full moon, to work on some release practices. So whether it's primal scream or whether it's just having a good cry, kind of like the cry where your whole body shakes, that could be a good thing to do with anything that comes up during this energy. So take a look, especially if you know your chart where this is happening, and then you'll get some more guidance and some more themes that are kind of tied to this full moon experience that we're all under collectively, but also individually. There's some other aspects that are interesting. Right now, we're under Venus square Mars. So Venus at 12 degrees of Pisces at the time of the full moon, square Mars at 11 degrees of Gemini. Mars is still in the post-retrograde shadow period and will be for a while. So if there's any relationship themes that are coming up, then they're coming up now, particularly during the square. Mars and Venus are the great lovers of the zodiac. So right now they're kind of head to head as far as the 90-degree angle between them. There is a sweetness, though, and an opportunity to go really deep because Venus is in Pisces, which is what's said to be the sign of her exaltation. The other really cool thing is I finally saw Venus for the first time since technically Venus became visible last week on Tuesday night. And if you can get out, if it's clear after sunset, go look. She's dazzling. I love Venus in the evening sky. It's just, she sparkles. Like it's the only planet that does that. So get out there and look, and that could be some cool opportunity too, if you can see it, to just call the energy in for whatever's coming up, how to process it. I love just doing planetary gazing and having that light just kind of hit my eyes and go into my body. So that could be a really cool thing to do under this energy as well. And then there's a couple other things. We have Mercury also still in the post-retrograde shadow under the full moon at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And Mercury will be very close to Pluto at this time. So that is just depth of information, depth of your mind and perception and communication. Pluto always pulls everything down into the underworld journey. So anything coming up around this time as well that might be something hidden or a secret to be revealed, that could also happen under the energy of this full moon. And one of the things that's supportive is the trine aspect of the moon to Chiron. So the moon will be at 16 degrees when it's full, and Chiron is now at 12 degrees of Aries. So fire to fire is a harmonious aspect. So the support from Chiron and any healing that's coming up during this time is there, and really good to work with in whatever you're doing to release the energy. So there's that. And then, just like I said, the great anus of the zodiac, releasing that Scorpio energy and deep emotions. We have an energetic trine from Venus to the south node as well. So that's a really nice aspect to also work on, support to release anything that feels stuck or needs to come out. One of the things I did last time was I covered the channeled imagery for the degrees of the zodiac with the new moon in Aquarius, which is last time I recorded. So I wanted to touch on that for this full moon as well, because I just feel like with Leo energy, just in the highest vibration of it, it's creation, and it's creation from the heart. And because the energy is a little bit tougher with this full moon and maybe feeling a little rocky to an extent because Uranus is involved, like I said, it could be cool to just think of the imagery as well as you're doing whatever you're doing under the energy for release. So what I picked, I went through my circular temple book again, and the one symbol that I found to be really cool is the Azoth symbol so we round up with these, so that would be 17 degrees of Leo. And this symbol is, as people tend to look beyond shadows, lights begin to come out in their eyes. And the explanation of this one, overcoming the illusions of outer darkness by allowing one's own inner light to shine forth and bring clarity to life. When outer opportunities seem limited and restrictive, this degree has the ability to seek out new possibilities through shifting its focus to its intuitive perceptions and allowing the flow of inspiration to guide it. I just thought that was beautiful, beautiful description of the energy for one, but also Leo energy in particular. And we may feel a little restrictive in this energy right now because we have also our annual Saturn and Sun conjunction coming up. They're about 10 degrees apart right now, so that's coming in the next 14 days, I guess you could say. That energy is going to build more strongly, and Saturn energy can feel very restrictive. So don't let that get to you. Create anyway. Connect to your muse and your creativity anyway, even if you're feeling like it's a little bit blocked or the energy is restrictive in some way. Just remember that inner light, and the whole drive behind Leo is for that inner light to come out and to create. And I just found that really cool. Just to touch on the Sabian symbol as well, which I thought was interesting. It is, where'd it go? I thought this one was funny. For 17 degrees of Leo, the Sabian symbol, a non-vested church choir. So to me, that kind of pulls in the balance in the Aquarian energy as well. It's like, if they're not vested, then I would imagine they're just all in like white robes, just based on my experiences with choir and church and that kind of thing. And that's just so pure. That energy is just so, it's like a clean slate. So I thought that was a cool one to throw out there as well. The other thing too is, as we're in this post-retrograde shadow with Mars kind of coming off and being in the integration phase now with both the Mercury retrograde and the Mars retrograde, I'm noticing some very specific and consistent themes arise with Mars. And with the whole experience on the other side of it now, with the retrograde being over, people really revealing their true colors. And when we're talking about a Mars retrograde in particular, a lot of the things that can come up are related to enemies, but more like frenemies. And it's beginning to look like that is a very prominent theme in the whole experience with most people that I've talked to about it. Clients, friends, my own personal life. So if that's happening for you also, which I want to probably bet it is, it's a really good time to just sit with it at this point and kind of reflect on the whole experience, like the whole Mars and Gemini going back to like August. Retrograde started on October 30th of last year. Just kind of going through all the pieces of the experience and your role in it too, because there's always that part as well. And it's just a good time for reflection and just processing of what happened. I just wanted to throw that out there too, because we'll be in the post-retrograde shadow period for a while with Mars. Mercury's is almost over, but this concurrent thing where they were both retrograde at the same time, and then kind of the post-retrograde shadow still being concurrent in this moment up until the full moon and a little bit after. In that whole processing and release part of the full moon energy, I think it's really cool to also tap into the post-retrograde shadow energy as well, and what's coming up and what the lessons were. My astrology teacher always says that with Mercury retrogrades, when the new cycle begins, when it's at the quote-unquote Kazemi point, conjunct the sun, when the new cycle starts, it's like you're getting claimed by a new idea. So what was the new idea that came in? Did it relate to, or is it still relating to, the Mars retrograde experience? And how are these two feeding on each other and playing out in your life? So just some food for thought around that. And I want to get into our Chiron material now. So I'm going to follow the same format. I think it's working pretty well. So we'll talk about the fourth house today. And for me personally, the fourth house is a very intimate place because that's where my North Node is. So that's where a lot of my big life lessons and soul lessons are coming in. in this lifetime, and it's highlighted more during certain times of the year. Especially right now, this full moon is pretty much on my nodal axis. My south node's at 17 of Aquarius and my north node's at 17 of Leo. So it's interesting. It's like shining the light on this part of my chart and of my soul. And it's a really good time for reflection for me as well, as far as what my nodal axis really means to me. So the fourth house generally relates to home and family, upbringing, childhood experiences. Also, it can relate to like our actual home, like the physical home, as well as land that we live on. It relates very much to our ancestry, where we've come from. And one of the most important themes of the fourth house that I feel like isn't commonly touched on is it's very much representative of our authentic self. So with my North Node lessons and experiences so far in that space of the chart, it has been very interesting as far as being my authentic self in my family. Some things have come up with moving house when I've had like my fourth house highlighted in certain ways, eclipses and other, energies that go into that space year to year. It's also been very much related to what I shared in my Healing the Root episode, which was all about how a physical condition also brought up things with ancestral trauma and ancestral healing. So I feel like those themes live in the fourth house as well. They may be more highlighted for you in particular if you have your IC, the root of your chart, in that space as well. So it's just the authenticity piece, especially with it being Leo, is really important for me in particular. And then just, being true to yourself, regardless of where you've come from. And if the ancestral healing thing comes up for you, being brave enough to do it, because that is not an easy thing to take on. And it's not easy to be the one that says, okay, this is enough. I'm breaking this pattern for my whole lineage, past, present, and future. That all lives in the fourth house. If you have natal planets there, it's an extra highlighted experience. I don't have any natal planets there, just my north node. So personally, I can't speak too much to that, but let's get into what Chiron means in the fourth house. So I'm going to continue reading from Barbara's book for these segments. And like I've said in the last few episodes, she does reference her research material. So I'll try and kind of glaze over that when she's going into that, because unless you have the book, you won't be able to look up the specific charts and pages she's talking about. So this is what Barbara says about Chiron in the fourth house. Chiron's presence in the fourth house signifies that the deepest healing of the self will come from a connection with roots. The experience of the first three houses, knowing who I am, finding a way to strongly connect myself, and discovering how to integrate myself. This is taken into the fourth house containing Chiron. And the individual must heal his or her deepest roots to discover who they are. The root connection in the tree of life of the natal chart relates to the healing of the planet, for we are not separate. Chiron itself rules ecology, the healing of the body/soul, and it is in the depth of the rootedness of the fourth house that the true nature of the Chiron healing seed can be sown. This signifies the most important teaching of our times, as it would seem that we are on the verge of terracide. Each person who heals him/herself heals the planet simultaneously. Individuals with Chiron in the fourth house are intense, brooding, deep, and often nervous. What they need most is to heal themselves, because their own level of personal disturbance unnerves everyone and everything around themselves. But they are so intense that they often think spending energy on themselves is selfish. They need to be shown that their ability to heal their own wounded natures will teach them to heal many others, or they need to see that self-healing itself is the way to universal healing. Chiron in the fourth reveals that their own healing will holographically attune the planet to healing. They should then initiate this client, they're talking about the astrologer-client relationship here, as an ecologist by teaching them that their sacred gift to the planet is to protect it. The basic Chiron archetypal energy is grasped by the resonation with the sense of the exact moment and place on Earth where awareness exists. The deepest understanding of this archetype is revealed through the sextiles to the Chiron-ruled 6th house, the sextiles from the 4th and 8th houses. Therefore, people with Chiron in the 4th are teachers about Chiron depth, and they are very misunderstood individuals at the present time. They are coming into their own as we begin to understand Chiron. The most striking energy revealed is resonation with suffering, humanity, or compassion. Chiron in the 4th can signify a suffering early childhood, which marks the psyche. These people know about pain because they have lived it intensely. Therefore, they know when someone else is suffering. The power of the energy is really evident in those who are living lives of compassion. Comfortable resonance with Chiron attunes us to the universal fire energy. Chiron in the 4th house is the revelation of the root system, the root chakra. Our resonation with the primordial life force is galactic, systemic, and beyond rational definition. So that's what Barbara has to say. And then what I've been doing is reading the description of the house from my Black Moon Astrology Cards, which gives us a little bit more material to work with as far as the themes of the space. So 4th house, roots, consistent there, which is pretty cool. The message or a quote for the card is, "I love you as certain dark things are to be loved, in secret, between the shadow and the soul." And that is a quote from Pablo Neruda, sonnet, let me do my Roman numerals real quick here, 17, it looks like, from 100 Love Sonnets. And the description from the book, the guidance for the 4th house is, "Your question may somehow be rooted in the past." This is an oracle deck, so we're talking like we actually pulled this card. It says, the 4th house is ruled by the moon. Just to interject real quick, this would be in a natural chart, so an Aries rising. The 4th house is ruled by the moon and governs the feelings, all the ways we are touchy and emotional, dreams, and our soul yearnings. It signifies the home, family, and the earliest phase of childhood, even to the time shortly before birth when we were still in the womb. It is the babe within the womb. It is cover that protects us from the world. This house represents nurturing, giving nourishment and safety. It symbolizes mothering and motherhood, and also the father who is able to mother and nurture his offspring. The 4th house shows the beginning of the family and holds the memories of our ancestors. It represents the putting down of roots and the foundation to everything in our lives, our heritage and tribal affiliations. In the 4th house, the self is centered and grounded, but also likes to hide away. As well as caretaking, it also represents hidden treasures and a place to retreat. There is both gentleness and emotional rawness in the 4th house. When this card shows up in a reading, home and family issues may have something to do with your query. And it represents your current environment, family members, and where you live. Real estate and land might also figure in, as in putting down roots or buying or selling a home. This card can be the predictor of a birth or new members in the family, a pregnancy, and can sometimes mean care for the elderly, including nursing homes and hospital stays. This card can also indicate the presence of angels and being directed by heavenly means. Events or appearances of persons from your faraway childhood may suddenly be relevant again. You may reconnect with someone and pick up again just where you started. If it has been years since you've seen your friend, memories of past lives may surface, transforming areas of your present life. Depending upon the surrounding cards, the results may be uplifting and perfect or shattering to the core. These memories will change you and the way you view your life. Again, look for reunions and reconnections with persons from your past, such as grammar school days or even relatives you don't know very well or had long forgotten. You may dig up fascinating news about your family or ancestry. Inheritances may figure in where you receive something that has been passed down to you. However, the home is the primary meaning behind this card. So buying or selling a house, adding on to a house, selling real estate and managing properties, as well as creating a secure home base all relate to your question. As the fourth house is also the house of dreams, imagining and relying upon magic could feature. After all, the fourth house is lorded over by Lady Moon, mistress of magic and the unseen world. It is now time to use your imagination and make things happen. What you think now is what will be. As long as you don't worry and fixate, your magical intentions will grow organically, just like a silvery plant under the sacred moon. And finally, whatever is being asked about may occur around the time of the full moon. Fourth house card in brief: who you are in secret, how you hide or where you hide, wanting to hide, not wanting to face matters directly, withdrawing to recuperate, retreating to the womb to gather strength and begin anew, finding safety in the familiar, ancestral memories, inheritances, family secrets, gardens, and things that grow. Earliest memories, feeling sentimental, happiness found in what is old and familiar, domestic issues, adding to the home, having a baby, newborns in the house, bruised feelings, touchiness, being too sensitive, anxiety, real estate, land issues, and buying a new house, mineral rights, bodies of water, leaks and damage due to water or floods, delays due to rain or snow, magic and kitchen witchery, angels and angelic guidance, dinners and celebrations involving good food, nourishment and the diet, stomach problems. Corresponding tarot card is the Four of Cups, and the key ideas: home, domestic issues, the mother, the father, ancestry, the tribe, old age, the end of a matter. So as I'm reading that, I had some thoughts that I could add to this. I did also mean to mention private life. So private life also lives in the fourth house. But it's interesting. I always work with my solar return chart. So my solar return chart this year, from October 6th, 2022, for my personal year until October 6th of this year, 2023, is a Cancer rising chart, and my sun is in the fourth house. And right around my birthday, we had that I talked about this in another episode, but we had those horrible remnants of what I'm still calling Ivan the Terrible come through. And we had leaks in like several different rooms in the apartment. So that was just during eclipse season as well. It was just freaking chaotic, totally chaotic. And it was just interesting how quickly that energy started to manifest and show itself with that placement of the sun in the fourth, and just rattling in my home and having it just be water that was, because it's a water rising and I have a Pisces moon in that solar return chart as well. So that was interesting. And then I can't pinpoint exactly when it started, but if you're familiar with like the old I don't know if it's crochet or knitting, but like think of a, how do I describe this? So they're these blankets that have this knitting in them where there's like holes between each part, like little holes, like Afghans, I guess you could say. And there's like this square pattern that just repeats in different colors all around the blanket. And I kept seeing these in movies I was watching, in a friend's house that I visited, and a couple other places, and it just kept coming up on repeat. And I remember growing up with at least two of these that either my mom or my grandmother knitted. So I asked my dad, I said, you know, and I actually asked both my parents if they knew, because they moved a while, like, God, at this point, it's probably like 13 years ago. And a lot of the stuff from the house that I grew up in is still in there in the house that they live in now, but it's up in storage. And I know that these blankets aren't anywhere in their living space. They're probably up in storage. So I asked my parents, I'm like, do you still have those? Do you remember including them in the move? And they said, yeah. And just before I started recording this episode today, my dad sent me a picture of the one that I had remembered and then I want, and he found it. So it's so interesting how all this fourth house stuff is coming up now with my solar return energy, but also just with the full moon kind of coming into fruition in this space and the intentions that I'd set 6 months ago under the Leo new moon were very much around just authentic self, because that's, I think, one of my biggest lessons in my North Node territory. So it's just cool to read the cards and the description for Chiron in the fourth, and then have those thoughts kind of come up that I thought could be important to share. And it's interesting too, because everything that I talked about in the Healing the Root episode was on my father's side of the family and related very much to my paternal grandmother and her lineage and where we came from. And everything that I healed with the root and just being related to safety and security, and just having it be the root of, the fourth house called the roots of all these themes that are coming up in what I'm reading, but also it being the root on my body that was the thing that was affected, that kind of brought on all these things up for healing and my inner work and lineage work that I came here to do. So really cool. The fourth house is interesting. It is a very mysterious place for me personally, just obviously with my, lessons and birth imprint set up being there with my North Node there, but really cool too, just thinking about Leo in general and how the sun is the only ruler of the zodiac sign of Leo, and how that brings us back to ourselves, and so does that fourth house space. So I'm going to wrap it there for today. We covered quite a bit. So I hope that all that information about the full moon and the astro weather were useful to you, and that you can carry those themes, especially the emotional release, forward into the weekend and the energy that will be under in the afternoon when the full moon is exactly full at 1:27 p.m. on Sunday. So there's that. And then just a quick one thing that's coming up next week for me. If you're in the South Jersey area, I am doing an in-person event at Zen Landing Wellness Studio in Mays Landing. I'm finally bringing back the in-person Magical Universe, my astrology lounge that I haven't done in person since March of 2020. And we'll be meeting there on Thursday, February 9th at 7 p.m. There's limited space, but what we'll do is we'll talk about the current energies, and then we'll just take a deep dive into what I call our magical universe, which is essentially, one, our birth charts, but then also from that moment forward, everything is in constant motion. So the collective energy and how the energy of the planets are affecting us personally is always changing. So I have some ideas as far as what I want to cover, but if you're going to come, you can register on zenlandingyoga.com, I think is their website. I'll put it in the show notes. You can register for the Magical Universe on their website. And if you're going to come, make sure, if you have it, to have your birth date, time, and location, because it'll just be like a big astrology circle, and we'll just hang out and we'll talk about our charts, and I'll do a mini reading for everybody. I'm kind of still percolating on what I want to focus on, but I have some ideas and thoughts as we have some big shifts coming next month. So I think that's important to focus on. So people have a few weeks to kind of really hone in on what the planetary shifts are going to mean for them. So that is coming up, like I said, on Thursday the 9th at 7 p.m. If you can make it, I would love to see you and hang out and talk all things cosmos and your birth charts and magical universe. So that is, like I said, I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's also on the Zen Landing website for registration. So that's coming next week, and I'll probably be announcing some other shifts and changes within the next month or so. Kind of starting to move some things over from Ursa Alchemy into just under the Sea Goddess umbrella exclusively. It's getting a little bit challenging to maintain two different things for me. So I'll be announcing that probably via email in the next month or so, I'm guessing, as I'm experiencing these planetary shifts as well. And I know where they're happening in my own chart. So it's time. It's time to just start kind of migrating and focusing on one thing in particular, which is, as I co-own Sea Goddess, so that makes the most sense to me. It's getting kind of hard to maintain two websites and two email lists and all that stuff. So that will be coming, and I will keep everyone in the loop. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you found it useful. If the full moon is happening in your fourth, like it is for me, then that's probably going to be an overlap, interesting information with the Chiron part as well, with everything that we covered. So that is all for today. And I hope that everyone is doing okay. And I just want to close out like I always do with, remember to be a maverick. Bye for now.